Well, Jim, what may be our last question, sent to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com, sent from Matthew the Leper in Bolton, UK.
Are you sure he's not a leaper?
It says leper, and then it says I should get this trademark before Jericho does. Here's his question. In the wake of the AEW Media Scrum fallout, I've seen comments from veterans suggesting that top stars having separate locker rooms can be a real problem and cause resentment. What's your view on this? I know that in previous generations, locker rooms were either single setups or designed for heels and baby faces, but what's your experience of this in the modern era?
Yeah, I mean, when it's taken too far, it's a problem. And I'll illustrate. Again, in the territory days or in wrestling down through years and years and years, there was either one locker room or two locker rooms, depending on the building and the setup and the way you went to the ring. There would either be the babyface locker room and the heel locker room, so that way the fans did not see you coming out of the same door, the same room, the same entryway. Or if it was a building where you had separate entrances that you could come out, but back in the back away from the public, consciousness, you could get in the same locker rooms. The Memphis Mid-South Coliseum was like that. That's actually Memphis and Louisville and Evansville were like that. Really, in Tennessee, the only place besides spot shows you couldn't, get to the other locker room was in Nashville. But in those cases, the referees would carry the finish back and forth. But anyway, so even the big stars in those days, there was no private locker room. Dusty had an office area in most of the buildings because he was the booker. And I did the same thing in Smoky Mountain when I was an on-air performing talent and the booker also. I generally had a room that I would commandeer, I called it the finish room, where the referees would bring the guys in either match by match or segment by segment, and you would go over, what was going on the show with them. And I always found it easier, instead of me trying to wander around and, find everybody individually, have the referees bring them to me. They know where to come. That's the command center. But that's the only reason I had a separate locker room. It's gone crazy in modern times with now not only the indie guys who think when they suddenly end up at a big building, they're stars and they should have private locker rooms, and the promoters give them private locker rooms or they demand them or whatever. And that does breed discontent with the average guy on the card, because all of a sudden, not only is this guy in the main events, not only is he making more money than me, but now he's too good to dress with the boys. He's got to be in there. Like it's not, I guess people have seen the WWE TV shows so long. Well, let's go to Roman Reigns' locker room, the Bloodline, and there's a sign on the door. That's all bullshit. Or at least it used to be. That was never the case. Now maybe it is. I don't know. But that does breed discontent or malcontent or uncontent. If all the guys are in the locker room, but this guy needs a private room, and this guy feels like he's too good to be one of the boys and dress with us and everything. Undertaker never did that, right? A guy like Bret Hart doesn't, so.
Did Shawn?
Oh, well, I know that sometimes he was in the locker room, and that's he was one of the guys at that point in time when he was in the regular guys' locker room. They didn't really want him to be. But no, he had at WrestleMania, when he came and dropped the belt to Austin with Tyson as referee, they had a separate room for him so he could put his security outside and be in there. And he was late getting to the building and had teased he wasn't going to show up and blah, blah, blah. I mean, sometimes they've brought a star football player in or some special celebrity guest. Yes, give them their own locker room, because you don't really want them in the locker room with the boys because they'll hear shit they shouldn't hear being talked about. Or at least that's the way it was in the old days. Now they hear shit they shouldn't be hearing talked about on fucking internet and major television. But that's, I mean, a lot of times the guys that deserve to have their own locker room because they're standing in the business or their experience level or whatever, they don't want one. They want to dress with the boys. So, yes, when there's, if you're also the booker or there's business being done, then you want your own room because that serves another purpose. But just to give a guy a private locker room and he's one of the boys, that does breed discontent.
In this era where wrestlers are so different than they used to be, if you have wrestlers who are not sociable or don't want to interact with everyone because you have a weird makeup in your locker room of different types of people, is it beneficial? I mean, CM Punk had his own locker room, and it may have been beneficial. He didn't mix with a lot of these guys. He mixed with who he wanted to mix with. That may have been the best way to use CM Punk in AEW, not force him to be around people that were going to cause him to eventually want to do something about it. I mean, do you see also examples where having your own locker room is a beneficial thing?
I can look at it the other way. I can look at it like CM Punk probably wanted his own locker room so he could bring the people that he enjoyed being around in and leave the stick in the muds over. Because remember, I've told you, the last few times I've been in these modern locker rooms, they're all sitting there looking at their fucking phones or they're texting each other while they're in the same fucking building. So when one guy at an MLW tape, I said, "Oh, have you seen so-and-so? Because I'm looking for him because I've got their match to produce." "Yeah, he just texted me." I said, "Where the fuck is he?" "Oh, he's upstairs by the ring." I said, "I thought you meant he texted you because he was down the goddamn road, broke down or something." He's actually texting somebody in the same fucking building. That's the thing, is that now these guys, they just sit there. They'll talk about their match for 3 hours and there goes 7 minutes, but there's no storytelling. There's no, bullshitting. There's no ribbing. There's no anything in the locker room anymore. It's just guys sitting there looking at their phones or engaging in idle chat. Nobody's trying to top a story. Nobody's trying to pull a fucking rib. Nobody's trying to fucking glue your goddamn shoes to the ceiling.
You want to talk about how different the locker room is. We never talked about this on the air. Did you ever hear the story way back, a few years ago, it must have been at this point, about a AEW bodies list that the boys did for fun in the locker room where they would compare their physiques and rank who's in the best physique this week? And no surprise to anyone, Billy Gunn won like every single fucking week. And
I haven't heard of this, but I can believe it.
The story goes that a certain wrestler who seems to be at the center of a lot of drama may have complained that it's body shaming having this list comparing the physiques of professional wrestlers in the locker room posted. Not that there was a list of who's a flabby ass or anything, but just talking about who's in the best shape was body shaming.
Oh, my God. Well, then I guess that they really wouldn't have lasted in the territories where one of the more fun things to do was talk about the other guy's minuscule, microscopic fucking dick.
There's no dick list. If there was a dick list, it would have been a different thing.
Body shaming. Boy, I tell you what, when Adrian Street was around, Adrian is a hell of an artist. I mean, he can draw, and he's very good, like Bret Hart. And they both would do pictures on like blackboards or, fucking dry erase boards if they happen to be in the locker room, or if we're in a high school gym. Adrian used to do tremendous chalk work on these school blackboards, but it would invariably, I remember one of them he did, the sheep herders, Jonathan Boyd and Luke Williams. And Luke was the nicer between the two of him and Johnny Boyd. And then Butch, of course, is a sweetheart. But Adrian would always make sure that a picture of the sheep herders, the flagpole that Luke was carrying with the New Zealand flag, was Luke's giant, throbbing, 4-foot-long, veiny fucking dick. And he would never erase them. He'd leave them in the goddamn... So then they'd come into school on Monday morning and there'd be a sheep herder with a giant 4-foot, veiny, throbbing cock with a flag tied to it. What a bunch of fucking pussies these guys are, is all I've got to say. Just fucking pussies. Body shaming.
Well, everything now is shaming. If you have a problem with someone and you say, you know what, this person has done shit to me and I'm fucking fed up with them, I'm going to let them know what I think. Everything you say is monitored. If you call him a fat piece of shit, how dare you? You're body shaming him. Yeah. Well, maybe he should have been a fucking dirtbag and I wouldn't be body shaming him.
Maybe he shouldn't be a fat piece of shit that's so fat that he doesn't have a waistline, he's got a coastline.
And again, the wrestler who complained about the bodies list, not in bad shape. Just not someone who would ever be near the top of the bodies list, and that was enough to be a problem.